Yep. It is 6:30 p.m. and at this time we will call the Barrington Select Board meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance if you would like to join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll start with a roll call, starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakosha here.
Capiello here.
Manchrak.
And Samako is present. Vice Chair Hardikoff is excused today. She had a new grandchild born this morning.
Oh, excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah, nice.
That's a good match.
And
Good with that one.
also present, we have Town Administrator Connor McIver and Deputy, what is it? Municipal Office Administrator Tiffany Cottle.
MOA. That's how
Oh,
I
okay.
it.
Let's see. Okay. So we now need to review and approve our agenda. I just wanted to make a note since I am, getting my feet under me as chair, just to make reminders about what some of these things are. This is one opportunity to make modifications to the agenda, like move things off of the consent agenda or onto the consent agenda by motion. But if something comes up later in the process, we can absolutely look back and re-review our agenda and make any adjustments as necessary. So that's just to say they don't all have to be done now.
Okay.
Other than the adjustments that have been provided to us in advance, does anybody have anything they needed to change?
I just wanted to know a little more about the Swains Lake Dam project and the effect of that on available monies for other dam projects. Could you mention something about that?
The Richardson Pond Dam project, the funds are reserved for that. So these are funds that would be in the capital reserve above and beyond the commitment the
Okay,
select
so it
board
will
made.
not interfere with that?
Correct. Excellent
Okay,
question. Yep.
that's all I wanted to know.
Okay, then at
How do we
this,
accept the agenda as written?
I have two items just to for your
Modify.
consideration to add. The first one I sent late in the day. It's a grant I'd like to add under new business, a clean diesel grant terms that we have a tight turnaround time on if you're interested. And then as promised, I did expect and we did receive a third citizen application for the CIP committee. So that's also a separate agenda item we'll discuss. But if you're willing, I'd like to add Paul Hansen to the CIP committee review process and add the clean diesel grant terms under new business.
And it's a requirement of the grant to trash the old equipment as
Yes.
opposed to resell it?
Yep. And we can
That's
talk more in
unfortunate.
detail when we get to it on the agenda. But
Okay.
yes, yep, that's a
That'll be
requirement.
new business. I move that we
Oh, that's new business.
accept
Okay.
the agenda as modified.
Second?
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Samako, aye. Okay, so the agenda has been accepted as amended. And at this time, I will open our first public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the entire public comment session is limited to 15 minutes. Questions and comments can always be submitted to ask@barrington.newhampshire.gov if you are not interested in making a public statement. However, just please keep in mind, if you raise your hand online to speak or you come up to the lectern in the meeting room, that this is not an opportunity for a back and forth with the board. You may or may not receive an answer. But certainly this is your opportunity if you would like, one of two opportunities this evening to make any comments. So do we have anybody present in the meeting room or online? If you're online, feel free to use the raise hand feature and be recognized. Okay, at this time, not seeing any hands raised online and nobody in the meeting room, I will close our first public comment session. And next up is public hearings and invited guests. So our first is our school board liaison report. Are you here on behalf of the school board or something else? Okay, then I will invite board member Rick Walker.
Thank you. It's been a while. We just kind of went through the stretch of doing like you guys budgets, and that was taking most all of our time. Now we're past that. Speaking of, well, first off, when we did committee assignments, I stayed on the select meeting committee, and Garth replaced Carrie Neal. So Garth is my cohort to represent the school board with the select board. Bless you. As you're aware, the budget, we have a default budget. So We've instructed the superintendent to put stuff together so we kind of have an idea of where she's going to go with that. We should hear more about that on the 21st. We're going to try to, we'll have some discussion about what we'll be able to buy out of what's left of this year's budget, because our budget year ends June 30th. So we'll try to do what we can out of this budget in anticipation of being short on the other side. But again, I have no idea where that stands right now. When we put our assignments together, we kept Moira Taylor as our chairperson and Carrie Neal as our vice chair. I can't give you all the committee assignments off the top of my head, but all of us have multiple committee assignments. I'm on facilities and I have the select board. We will be having a discussion on our next official board meeting, which is the 21st. And one of the items we'll discuss will be school board liaison to the CIP committee and the alternate. So I don't have anything at that right now because it hasn't gone before the full board. And the only other thing is of any real note right now is that we had a leach field issue at the elementary school, and there's 2 leach fields over there, and it's supposed to switch from one leach field to the other back and forth, and they were trying to determine, they think that wasn't working, so one leach field was taking everything. So the last update, we just got an email today. They've had some contractors in looking at it. Obviously, if we have to replace the leach field, we got to do a full design. And so the update they gave us today is that they're going to, they've shut off the field that was leaking. And they'll leave that off, and they'll pump the tank a little more often, and we'll get past April vacation, and then they'll, with the hopes that leach field that has failed has dried up enough, and then they'll turn that back on to use that one again. And at that point, we'll know that either it's a failure because it continues to leak, or that the issue took care of itself by getting back to the point of being able to switch them back and forth. So we don't know that yet. It'll probably be middle of May, but we don't have an active leaching issue for the kids to play around, and it'll be, the only good part of it is the timing of it is that it looks like at this point that if we have to replace the leach field, we'll be able to do it this summer when school's not in session. So they haven't even talked home what that's going to cost, but
It will be a hit to the budget.
yeah, we have a capital reserve fund for building maintenance and stuff like that. And so hopefully we would be able to take it out of there, or if not, use it out of his maintenance line, and then take some of the stuff that was actually budgeted for maintenance. So, but I'll keep you updated, and but it's safe for the kids, which is the important thing. We were actually concerned when it first happened. There was some speculation we might have to cancel school, but thankfully that wasn't the case. Yeah, anybody have any questions?
Do I understand right that Garth replaced Carrie as liaison to the school board, but the school and town communication collaboration is still you and Carrie?
Yep, Carrie.
For the purposes of scheduling? Okay,
yep.
Great. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to make sure I hear a little more often now.
Next up
See
is
you.
our elected leaders series, and we have today Representative Cassandra Levesque.
Hi, Cassie.
Welcome.
Just tap that mute button, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I did look up a couple of the bills that I've been watching from municipal and county. A lot of the bills that I do have, they would negatively impact the town of Barrington, but so far it looks like the Senate has been referring them for interim study, so they'll be looking at them over the summer, either letting them just stay there or working on them so that way they can rewrite them a little bit. I know that one of the ones I wanted to highlight was dealing with the electronic ballots. That one, I think it was referred to interim study. There was another one dealing with how we vote on as a town. They wanted to create where it would require like a ballot vote to remove ballot voting in the towns. And no debate or anything, just it was a contradiction in itself. So the Senate voted to interim study it, either to just let it die in the Senate or to reword it so that way it works a little bit better for the towns. I did also want to address that the delegation, we did vote down the budget for this year, the first quarter budget, mainly because a lot of that money that the detention center was getting was from ICE, and we felt that that was not needed. It needed to be reduced, and the terms needed to be negotiated a little bit more than what we have right now. So we did vote down the budget. So that caused the closing of Hyder House, which we took up because the private entity was saying, oh, we're leaving, and then the county took it up as a extra funding and also maintenance thing. So that is closing. So a lot of the people will be rehoused back into the nursing home or find places that can take them. But I did want to say that money that Hyder House was getting, as far as I'm aware, is going into ICE anyways. We are trying to negotiate with that with the county commissioners. I know the chair is trying to talk with them right now as we speak, but I can give you guys updates with that. But as far as the county budget, it's reverted back to the commissioner's budget before we made any amendments or anything to it.
It's a real loss that a hospice facility in the county will close. Do you think there's any hope that that will reopen?
I hope there is, just because I know that a lot of people use that. We actually had a former state representative who actually had to step down because their health declined. She actually had to be moved into there. But I hope that it does get reinstated. I know that's a lot of our goals on the delegation is to get that reinstated and to not have it shut down. Our goal is never to get anything shut down. That's why we're trying to build a new nursing home.
Are we gonna, is the county still taking the 280? Is there any thought of changing that money to the ICE money, stopping that contract, or is that going to continue?
It's been one of the options to stop the ICE contract, but right now there's pros and cons with it. There's the con that we would lose a lot of the federal funding that helps keep the building afloat a little bit. But there's also the factor that we have said to them, we told the commissioners, we don't want people that are not committed of serious crimes put into our prison. That's what we told the commissioners, like, this is what we want. And so we're still talking with the commissioners, trying to see if we can negotiate a contract with ICE a little bit better.
Were there any active cases in New Hampshire where innocent people got thrown into county?
Not that I'm aware. Most of them have been a little bit, they aren't put into the county as far as I'm aware, where it's not an egregious account. There's been some highlights of a prisoner was in there, but from our discussions, not everything was told by his representation in the media. And not all of it happened here in New Hampshire. A lot of it happened other places too. But as far as I'm aware, most of them we had required them to commit serious crimes. A lot of what happens is we're kind of an in-between Maine and Boston. So sometimes it's just a in-between transport type of thing. And that's what we're trying to tell them, please don't.
So there was only one really case that you had heard about that was questionable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which the commissioners did discuss with us with that, but I can't go into much detail because that was a private, non-public hearing. It was more of an informational type of thing, so,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything from Connor?
One question relative to the jail. The governor's office was recently touting the bail reform, which seemed to be a strong bipartisan support for bail reform. It left me wondering, she was touting the how many folks were kind of kept in the jails. Has the operators of the county jail communicated any impacts to the budget that the bail reform has had? Like, is that costing the counties more money, or how's that working?
They haven't indicated anything. What I can do is follow up with them with that. And if you want to send me an email with the more specific, I can
Great.
definitely follow up with them with that. I know that with a lot of the programs when it comes to the county, we actually have a drug court, we were the first ones in the county, which has helped a lot of people staying out of jail and getting back into the community. We've had, unfortunately, unicorn happen this past year where an inmate was transported. He was in our care and transported down to Mass Gen. So we had some overtime with that with a lot of our sheriffs and a lot of our guards. So because hospitals do require at least 2 guards to monitor outside the room. And Mass, they did try to help us out as much as possible until their senior said, look, we can't do it anymore. We're pulling at the budget right now. So that was the only thing. And then he has been since released into the state facility. But he was not eligible for release because of the severity of his crimes. So both the attorney of the county and many of the advocates that were helping were adamant that he not be released into society just yet. And then he had his medical emergency that we had sent him over to Dover, and Dover said, look, we don't have enough. So since that, we are looking at broadening our contracts between Portsmouth and Frisbee, because Portsmouth does have a lot more medical facilities than Dover does. So hopefully we may have more contracts with them.
Thank you.
Well, I had a question. So we appreciate your time and you coming here, and it's great to have, our representatives be able to come and have some face-to-face time with us. But one of the things that I've been hearing, just sort of from a boots on the ground grassroots perspective after, the start of this latest legislative session, is that a lot of people giving testimony don't feel like, even if they're giving it in person, like it's really being well received. And I understand that there's not currently any legal requirement that written testimony be reviewed, and I know that there have been some possible solutions to that. I was just wondering if, for the benefit of everybody online and in the room and people who watch this later, as well as members of this board who I'm sure participate in different types of advocacy, what do you think is the most important thing that we continue to do as far as making sure that our voices are heard?
Definitely either coming to committee, or when you send us an email, what happens is if you do you see a whole bunch of people are emailing us and you join that group, our email automatically kind of proofreads it for us. And if it sees that it's the same email, just a different name, it labels us at bulk. So we look at what I always tell people to do, individualize it. Make it different than everybody else, whether that's, hey, I know there's a bunch of people writing you, but I just want to say that I agree with them and I agree with what they're saying, but I wanted to individualize it. So that's why, like, I always tell people, make sure that it's personal, make sure that you individualize it because of that little mechanism. And also, if it doesn't hurt to come up to Concord, I know it's a little bit a ways away for people, but you can always come up, testify. We're now at Granite Place because the legislative office building is being renovated. Hopefully, it'll be done soon, but you don't know. But they had some, I think it was like water damage, and they were like, you know what, we're just going to renovate the whole building. So, because of how old it was. But we're at Granite Place, and you can come testify. That's always really helpful. You can submit your testimony, even if it's you as select board or you as an individual, or even just saying, hey, I'm from like this town. This really would impact us either negatively or positively. Please like vote this way. Even if it's just to me, I always take that in consideration when I'm voting, just to see like having someone from my district be like, okay, this is really gonna impact them. So
I appreciate that. I think a lot of people just, they work, they can't get up to Concord. So the more accessible our legislature can make the real-time feedback, the input, because it matters and how it impacts us. So the more accessible that can be made, the better. But I appreciate it.
yeah.
And I know you usually come see us about once a year. And is this the last time we're gonna have you?
Yes, this is the last time. I will be getting married this October and moving down with my future husband down to Mass, just because his job, he works for a school district, and the pay and the benefits would be cut significantly than would be up here. So we weighed the pros and cons. I did try to convince him to move up to New Hampshire.
Well, we appreciate the service that you have put in, and we understand. Congratulations.
Yeah, but the people that have said that they are wanting to run for state rep are really great, and
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure that they would be happy to come and talk to you guys. So,
Anybody have anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thanks.
your years of service. I appreciate
thank you.
that. Yeah, you're no longer the youngest person in the world, so you're so good. Thank you.
Okay, next we have this is an invited guest, the Route 125 at Scruton Pond Road Culvert Project, Christine Perrin and McFarland Johnson.
They're participating virtually.
Oh, okay.
And I, in working with them to schedule this appointment, as they get their cameras on, they have the presentation, the printed copy of the presentation, which they don't plan to go through, but that's available online and in your packets. And as I indicated in my town administrator report, we did have a pre-meeting with our public safety leaders so that they could provide the specific feedback they were looking for about the project design, impacts on traffic, and kind of some of what those priorities were. I'll just share that all of the public safety leaders were very appreciative of that opportunity. We don't always get that opportunity at this early stage in the design process. So we're able to provide some really thoughtful feedback for them to consider as they go through design. And this is an opportunity for the select board to ask any questions about the project. Certainly, like I said, we can pull up any slide of the presentation. But I will introduce Christine Perrin, who's here virtually, and it looks like Christopher Gagney as well.
All right, welcome.
Thank you very much. As Connor said, we are happy to answer any questions you have or go through certain details if you would like us to, but we're here to provide you information and answer your questions.
Shannon?
That was a very thorough presentation that you've given us. I had a little trouble understanding or measuring all that. Will this project result in closing Scruton Pond Road at all, or is it far enough away from the entrance to Scruton Pond Road?
I don't believe Scruton Pond Road would need to be closed. It may be impacted temporarily during construction, and I will ask our engineer, Chris Gagney, to weigh in if I'm speaking incorrectly?
Yeah, it's not anticipated to be closed. It will definitely be impacted during construction though.
Right. Saw the drawing that kind of led up that way. I had another question, if I may.
Sure.
How long do you think it will take to do this? I didn't see that, but I may have missed that.
That's also depending on which alternative is selected. Most of the alternatives, 2 to 3, definitely would be um, assumed to be done in one construction season. There's one alternative, the third alternative, that's a little bit more involved and could potentially leak into another construction season, but it's anticipated just one construction season.
I have a third question,
Go
if
for
I
it.
may. Yeah, they said, you mentioned in your plan that there would have to be some expansion of the highway to the west. Is that going to impact that environment over there on the west side of the road? I mean, it's a swamp, but I don't know if that will have a permanent effect or if it's just going to be easily done and easily repaired or easily taken away.
And that's a swamp where the cattails are.
Right.
Right.
We do anticipate both permanent and temporary wetland impacts resulting from the project. We haven't quantified those. As Chris mentioned, we haven't selected a preferred alternative yet. But any temporary impacts for traffic diversion would be restored so that, the wetland is restored in kind following construction. Permanent impacts would potentially require mitigation through DES as part of the permitting process. So we would be looking at that process in the next phase of the project.
Will that depend on the option that's chosen?
Yeah, impacts will vary depending on the option that is chosen.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I saw in here that design phase is scheduled for this year. When would you expect to begin the construction?
This year we are in preliminary design. The project has funding through a grant that the Nature Conservancy acquired, and that grant is funding preliminary design only. If additional grant funding is acquired or if DOT finds program funding, the project would then move into final design and then it would move into construction. So the schedule is a little bit uncertain still depending on the funding situation. So the start of construction is a little hard to pin down at this point. I do want to mention that we have Kirk Mudgett, who is the New Hampshire DOT project manager, on the call as well. So Kirk, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add.
You're doing fine.
And my last question is, how are you choosing between the 3 alternatives?
We look at a balance of factors. We need to consider making improvements to the factors listed in the presentation. So environmentally, we're looking at making the structure more geomorphically compatible with a stream, which just means a structure that's more invisible to the stream system, so to speak. And we're also seeking to improve aquatic and terrestrial wildlife passage. We also obviously want to make the structure more resilient by providing increased hydraulic capacity and reducing the risk of flooding of Route 125, and balancing all of that with, impacts to surrounding properties and surrounding resources like the wetlands we just discussed, as well as obviously cost. So we look at all of those factors and try to find the solution that makes improvements while also balancing impacts and cost.
Thank you.
Good.
So I'm assuming we're cutting pavement and then we'll be putting in new culverts, correct? We'll be boring.
It would be open cut.
Another question slash something I think is worth talking about, depending on what time this does kick off and you end up into the winter months. That section of road is very well known for accidents and especially people flying down. So I don't know if there's going to be increased signage, maybe some lights warning people, but just, you know, there's cars that go off there every winter.
Okay, thank you. That's good information.
Yeah, I agree that that's important to keep in mind. Even outside of winter, that's a rough area because it's kind of blind coming from both directions due to elevation and curves. So, you know, safety is going to be really important in making sure that things are far enough out that people know before they get to that point. Any further comments or questions from the board, from the office? Okay, thank you very much for providing this update and
Great,
your
thank you.
thorough information.
Thank you.
Thanks for your input. Have a nice evening.
You guys.
Okay, next up is a public hearing for issuance of a building permit on Hemlock Lane, a private road for Patrick J. Devine and James S. and Rebecca Devine Life Estate. We have, go ahead, come on up, yeah.
You may. The select board has in front of them a cover sheet from the town planner. It's summarizing the application and the review from the planning board. I'll point out that this is a category 3 option 2. They've proposed an application that invests the 10% in improving Hemlock Lane. It's supported by department heads and the planning board. And the full packet is available linked online, attached to the town administrator report. And the select board has an opportunity to ask any questions of the applicants.
Any questions of the board? I just wanted to say I thought that the proposed use of those funds was very thoughtful.
Oh, good, thank you.
But
I ask questions at planning board, so I'm all set.
okay. Okay.
I spoke with Jamie today. I'm good.
All right. Then at this time, I will open public comment for any members of the public online or present in the room who have any comments on this particular building permit request.
Please.
Please just state your name and your address.
And you can stand up here if you
Yeah.
prefer.
And just wanted to voice my support for them. They've been a great neighbor. They help out with the road a lot. They always pay dues, which can be a challenge. But I think we went through this already at the planning board. We went through it at the ZBA. They've done everything that you guys have asked for. I really don't see a problem with this. So just want to speak in support of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments from the public online or in the room, then we will close public comment and I will entertain any motions.
I will make a motion to authorize the issuance of a building permit for map 124 lot 35 on Hemlock Lane as presented.
2,
Okay, and a roll call starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakoshai.
Capiello, aye.
Manager Guy?
Simonko, aye.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
Motion
Staff will be in
passes.
touch. Okay, thank you. Yeah, enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Happy building.
okay, next we have the public hearing on the Barrington Strategic Plan for 2025 to 2030, the 2026 update.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the 2026 update to the 2025-2030 strategic plan as amended.
Well,
But do we have public
There may be
comment?
some discussion
yeah,
here.
I actually had something that I wanted to share. I'm looking at action item 5.3. And I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about this. When we met to discuss the strategic planning, you know, we were talking about,
Sharon, yeah,
what's that?
I missed it.
We were talking about, you know, when we're talking about our elderly and trying to make sure that we're supporting our seniors as best we can, we really want to focus that here in town. The language that was used when we were talking about this and that's come up before is allowing people to age in place. So I know that Vice Chair Hardikoff also had some thoughts on this about possibly moving the assessment of unmet needs up as sort of the primary thing here, and then making what is currently 5.3.1 and 5.3.3. These are my recommendations. She just also had expressed concern about this, but I'm making those sort of subcategories to that. I think before we can start figuring out what to do, we need to kind of hear from people in town, who have these concerns. I see the comments on Facebook a lot, about people being priced out of their homes as they get older and as they retire. I do think that it would be a good idea to maybe start by assessing what are the things that people feel are their unmet needs as they look down the road at trying to age in place, or what the barriers are to doing that. Any thoughts?
No, but I don't know that Select Board Hardikoff has brought up often concerns about that this be any senior living situation be dedicated to Barrington residents,
Yes.
and that's probably not a legal thing to do from our discussions with other groups. So I do want to put that out there.
Or I think if we start by just talking to people here in town about how we structure this, that might naturally fall into place rather than having to be an explicit thing.
Well, I think it is explicit that, we may be prevented from, whatever the service might be, we might be prevented from limiting that to only Barrington citizens. But I agree that looking at the concerns of the Barrington residents is definitely a place to start.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself the way I'm intending to. I think if we start by finding out what the needs are, that the methodologies that we're looking at to assist people, whether it's a more, robust, approach to property taxes, which is something that has been brought up many, many times, those types of solutions really only apply here in Barrington. So, trying to figure out what the realm of solutions looks like, not necessarily with explicitly saying this only applies to these people. I just think that some of the solutions really only apply if you live here. But, if everybody else feels that this is an appropriate structure, then I'm just one voice here, so.
Just to clarify one thing, sorry, between when you and I met, Select Person Hardikoff shared the suggestion of just reordering, keeping the content. The printed materials in the Strategic Plan 2026 update that's linked online does list action item 5.3.1 as the assessment,
Okay.
5.3.2 as explore senior housing opportunities, and 5.3.3 support programming for seniors.
Okay.
So obviously the order of the action items of the strategic plan isn't necessarily the priority order or the order of events. They're kind of items. But I think as in the early draft, which the rest of the select board didn't see or you saw as a draft for feedback thinking for today, moving the assessment first seemed pretty logical that, okay, we'd start with an assessment. So that ordering is part of the current draft proposed.
Okay.
It occurs to me that these three items aren't necessarily sequential.
No.
Right.
That we have to do all of those things. In fact, I would suggest that 5.3.2 and 0.3 are really part of 5.3.1. So they're just two of the items that we would look at. I think that this emphasizes what we want to do, but I don't think it changes. There are other things we'll look at as well. I think
Okay.
I wouldn't suggest any changes to this.
One thing Alex did mention is putting 5.3.2 and 5.3.3 as subcategories of action item 5.3.1, which is kind of in line with what you were saying. So we could renumber those 5.3.11 and 5.3.12.
That's,
To kind of clarify that point. You think about the innocent observer that pulls up the strategic plan and says, hey, what are these select board priorities and where are they going? If we can integrate that kind of logic into it without having to explain it, if that's the perspective anyways, that's certainly doable.
Again, yeah, the way it's listed, it perhaps suggests a sequential process, but I don't think it is. I think all that is part of the evaluation, basically.
I understand. I mean, can you restate your motion for me? Is the resequenced one that Connor has sent out, the one that you want to adopt?
I don't know, I like this, the way it is, if we want to make 3.2 and point 3, 1A, 1B, 1C, however you want to number those things would be my proposal, but I'm not sure we want to make a big deal.
Understood. I mean, I think
I think that's reasonable.
My real concern is there are other things that we also maybe want to look at too. So one other suggestion would be just to have action item 5.3.1.
And just
just-
bring the text up.
I wouldn't bring any text.
Oh, just leave the pursue an assessment.
Yeah,
Right.
I would support that.
I would like to have, I would like to have more text there about
Okay.
it. Or it could be, for example.
No, I'm not hung up on it either. I'm just suggesting that it's kind of part of the,
I agree with you. It's, part of the process.
Yeah, I mean,
But I feel like we started some senior housing discussion with Dove Development, and some other things that we brought up in the past about just sort of reaching out for potential opportunities. So I think it kind of covers that discussion we've had earlier, which at that time the select board said they supported it.
yeah, I mean, I think we all supported it. It was just more of, the high level being, let's start with an assessment and kind of gather that information before we, because this sort of presumes some specific action items, but this is also fine. So I would take a motion with or without an amendment to the copy that you all are working from.
I haven't thought of a whole way to do this, but
Well, if we're going to leave them in there, do we want to do the make 2 and 3 a subcategory of 1? It seemed
I
like
think
there was
that's
support
fine.
for that.
I
Yeah.
think that's fine.
I guess that would be fine. I guess then I'd want to add
Well, add some more, yeah. what
another
would be-
paragraph and another paragraph, and we could get really into the weeds with this. Which I'm not sure we want to be that specific.
Just a suggestion, in 5.3.1, we could amend that, and right now it reads, pursue an assessment of the unmet needs of seniors in Barrington. And if we move the 2 action items below, referencing senior housing and care and programming as subcategories of that, we could add to 5.3.1, including but not limited to action items 5.3.11 and 5.3.12. So that makes it clear that the assessment will be a broader exercise than those 2. But hey, look, we know about senior care and housing needs and programming needs right now. So, let's not waste time. Like you were saying, they're not sequential. We can be working on those at the same time.
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Works for me.
Yeah, just,
So I can make a motion at this time,
Okay,
unless there were
sorry.
other discussion items. Okay. So at this time, I move that we adopt the 2026 updated version of the 2025 to 2030 strategic plan with the amendment that action item 5.3.1 language be added, including but not limited to, and that action item 5.3.2 and 5.3.3 become subcategories underneath that as 5.3.1.1 and 5.3.1.2.
have you memorized those numbers?
That's actually just exactly what I wrote in my notes
Okay.
before we even
You're
came here.
impressed. I'm impressed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Before we vote, we'll do public comment for the public
Oh,
hearing.
yes. Let's open public comment on the plan itself or the motion, online or in person. Just raise your hand or approach the lectern. Seeing none, we will close public comment and a roll call vote starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakosha,
Gabriella, aye.
Mancheck, aye.
Smock, aye. Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Do we have any? I don't recall any modifications.
No
to that.
modifications to the consent agenda. Thanks for
I
checking.
move that we approve the April 13th, 2026 consent agenda with affirmative votes as suggested.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakosha.
Capello, aye.
Manchuk, aye?
Samaco, aye. Okay, scrolling down. Okay, 7. Okay, appointments.
So I'd invite our town planner up, Ernie Cartier-Creveling, to first address for appointments the Capital Improvement Program Committee. In your printed packet, you have 2 citizen application for appointments. And as we added under agenda review earlier today, you have a new application that came in today for a Paul Hansen. So I'll let our town planner give you a brief overview of where we stand with the committee right now, and then we can talk about the specific appointment items that we'd like the select board to consider doing tonight, so we can get this committee off the ground. Please.
Good evening. As you know, the town meeting passed an article to allow the select board to appoint a CIP committee with the focus primarily of, with the only focus of putting together a capital improvement program for the town. I think this is great news, and I know that Connor's had some outreach to some people, and we met with an individual, one of the people last week, and I think everybody that I've talked to that wants to be on the committee is excited about it. So that's good news because, it's an important program. As you know, the capital improvement program deals with the high dollar items that you have to budget for over the years. And I think one of the differences you'll see with the group that's focused on this is that you'll get a comprehensive plan, but you'll also get recommendations on how to look at funding it. And of course, it's a living, breathing document, so it will change from year to year. Any of the recommendations could change, funding sources could change, but what the important thing is here is that you will have a group of people constantly working on it, and you'll have a hopefully overlapping experience that continues to grow over the years. So, so tonight you have the first individuals that you're going to be appointing, and again, I think that's exciting. I think we're planning on trying to schedule the meeting towards the first meeting towards the very end of this month to get things organized. We put together some draft bylaws for the committee to obviously take a look at and go through themselves and amend. And I've also got some informational resources put together, some links. I've gotten a couple of documents from NHMA, and I've got all that ready to go as soon as we have an initial appointment done.
Great.
I think we should point out that I think one of the things they wanted to prove to everyone so that the committee could start meeting
Correct.
before our next meeting. So our 2-step process, we may want to rethink our 2-step progress, this particular item.
Precisely, yeah, that's the proposal, is that we would have an opportunity to suspend the appointment to board procedure from a 2-part process to 1-part process to get this committee going. In the town administrator report, you'll see the proposed makeup of the committee, which is certainly subject to amendment by the select board. But how it's set up for conversation purposes is having representatives from the planning board, advisory budget committee, and school board serve on the committee. And certainly it would be the select board's responsibility to appoint those individuals, but we have asked, and we would continue to ask in the future, that those groups recommend appointments among their ranks so that the folks that are interested in participating in the process have an opportunity to. So that's happened prior to the meeting tonight. The planning board met and recommended Scott Shepard as a full member and John Driscoll as an alternate. The advisory budget committee met and recommended Mona LaPierre and Peter Royce as full members and Bill Irving and Farida Shagazi as alternate members. And then the school board, while they haven't met to make an official recommendation, the two members of their facilities committee have expressed interest, Chief Walker being one of them and Garth Svensson being the other. And so I think it'll be a matter of the two of them deciding who might be a good full member and a good alternate to participate in the process. At one point, we had discussed the select board's role in the group being either as a liaison or as an ex officio member. And I think there's merit in both approaches. In the instance where we have 3 applicants from resident members, and I'll point out these are resident members who haven't been involved in anything before. So these are new faces, which is a really positive thing. The select board may consider having just a liaison this first round. And so we have 7 full members that are all outside of the select board.
And a liaison would mean one of us would participate in discussions but be non-voting.
Exactly. Or we could have the select board member serve as an alternate. So if one of the voting members was out and there wasn't an immediate backup, they could be an alternate voting member. So we made sure we had 7 voices for any time a decision needed to be made.
That's interesting.
I would recommend the liaison because eventually the select board's going to have to vote on most of these things anyway, so that might be better to have them as a liaison as opposed to an ex officio or an alternate member.
Those were my thoughts as well. I think a little bit of distance is good.
Right.
Anybody else?
I would move that we suspend our 2-part approval process for this particular subject item. I don't know how to cite that exactly.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Steve Downing and Tom Bowden to the CPI committee with appointments expiring in 2027 and to accept the recommended appointments of the Advisory Budget Committee, Planning Board, and School Board with the indicated terms expiring in 2028 and 2029.
Do you want to amend your motion to add the 3rd member of the public that we received
Oh, yes,
today?
and
Paul Hansen.
and yes, as amended.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
We need to,
O'Shea.
LOI.
And sure, guy.
do we need to include language in that motion specifically suspending that 2-part process as to the 3 members of the public?
It's not required.
Okay.
I think the discussion will be reflected in the minutes.
Okay, Samako, aye. I look forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing that I think is useful to know is these people generally have been approved for other things except for the 3 new members.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't open.
No public comment required.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next up is other appointments.
You have your updated table. Again, we're just carrying a few stragglers in making appointments. I will point out that the entire Advisory Budget Committee is on here. We were waiting to resolve where we would land with the CIP committee before we took those steps. Fortunately for us, all of the existing Advisory Budget Committee members are interested in being reappointed. Unfortunately for us this year, that all of the terms ended up expiring at the same time. So we have proposed fixing that through alternating appointment or staggered appointments for this round of appointment. This would still be a 2-part process, and so the final vote on the folks for discussion tonight would be up on May 11th, and there are a couple up for a vote at tonight's meeting.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint the individuals indicated with the select board vote date of April 13th, 2026, all of which were reviewed for discussion in the March 16th, 2026 meeting for the indicated terms on the 2026 terms expiring and reappointments sheet dated April 9th, 2026.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Oh,
Okay,
LOI.
and sure, guy.
Samako, aye. Welcome back, returning people. All right, staff reports.
Thank you.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Our first and only meeting in April, I wanted to address some of the work anniversaries. These are folks hired historically in the month of April. At the top of the list, in our presence, we're in the presence of greatness. Chief Joy was hired, started his law enforcement career 27 years ago in this very town.
Wow.
He tells me he intends to retire here. I hope he never retires. But 27 years ago this month. John Booty started in the fire department 23 years ago. Chris Eldridge started in the fire department 13 years ago. David Kinnison, fire department again 10 years ago. Henry Resnicek, who, as you know, was recently rejoined us after a brief hiatus, has been 5 years in the town of Barrington. Adam Cook started in the highway department 4 years ago. Casey Cooch started in the fire department 4 years ago, and Vincent Daw started in the fire department this time last year. New addition to the town administrator report this month is an employee training spotlight. Certainly welcome feedback on how we present this, but this is part of the select board's initiative to not only highlight the tenure of employees, but the training and certification they participate in. And so, I put the call out to department heads that, hey, between now and the next select board meeting, if you or any of your employees are participating in training or certifications, let me know so we can get it in here. I was actually surprised myself how many emails came through just in the few short weeks between when that happened and putting the materials for this meeting together. So our finance administrator participated in a few trainings about performance feedback and collaboration. The public works department, we had an opportunity to host a culvert maintainer workshop in this very room. And in being the host, we had the opportunity to sign up 3 individuals to participate at no cost, which was terrific. This culvert maintainer certification is a big deal because it allows staff to replace culverts, which we do constantly, without going through a DES permitting process. So DES has authorized this curriculum, and it allows the staff and public works department to be a lot more efficient in how they go about their road maintenance. So really a big deal, and we were able to get a couple of new certifications out of the process, which is great. Our public works director also participated in a crack sealing and mastics training, focusing on some new technologies. Barbara Irvine, land use administrative assistant, participated in trends in housing, permitting, and innovative zoning, and floodplain ordinances, adopting new floodplain maps. Our human resources administrator went to the 2026 Granite State Human Resources Conference. Some of the courses that she participated in talked about job descriptions in this other duties as assigned category, the question behind the question as it relates to interviewing folks, and solo but mighty, focusing on those human resources offices that aren't a staff, but individuals that do everything. And then also a Primex training on personnel files and record retention.
Oh, very impressive.
Lots of continued growth.
Yeah.
Our Barrington elected representative series has filled out. The upcoming schedule in May will have our executive counselor, John Stephen, and Senator David Waters. Certainly, if there is anything of interest to the Executive Council or the State Senate that you folks would like either of these individuals to address or speak to, let me know. Obviously, legislatively, that would be Senator Waters, and operationally, contracts-wise, and state government-wise, executive branch, that would be our Executive Counselor. So definitely let me know, and I can pass that along.
Any word from the governor's office?
No. No. Although I did have I had a conversation with our partners at UNH Cooperative Extension, who participated in the Downtowns and Trails program or sponsored that for us. And the governor's office is very motivated around the outdoor economy in New Hampshire. And so she kind of expressed that the governor is always looking for opportunities to get out in the state and participate in activities that promote the outdoor economy. And so one of the things I was thinking about, certainly we'd have to run this by before extending an invitation, but the Antique Truck Show might be an opportunity to say, hey, this is a big deal in Barrington, started in Barrington, it kind of highlights the Barrington charm and this intersection of rural character and kind of the new exciting things we have going on with the town center, TurboCam, businesses like TurboCam. So that might be an opportunity that's more attainable.
Cool.
Yep. So we'll look at that. Representative Harrington will be here in June, and Representative Turcott is scheduled for August, but may be here sooner if his schedule allows. And I'm still waiting to hear back from Representative Howard, but obviously he is busy running campaign, so understand his time constraints. Select Board committee assignments. So I'll let the chair speak to final assignments and any changes that may be necessary.
Yes, so I only received one person interested in having a change to their assignment. So I wanted to ask you, Dan, and I didn't get a chance before the meeting. Would you be interested in giving up your position as liaison to the school board? And if not?
Either one. They usually meet on the same day with the library,
Okay,
so it's hard to be at both.
okay, I'm gonna give that to Tracy though, then. I'm gonna give her ZBA and school board because she has expressed an interest in that, and that means you don't have that scheduling conflict anymore. So other than that, everything will remain the same with the exception of moving school board to Tracy Hardikoff.
Can I ask,
Of course.
what's TSRC?
Transfer Station Recycling Center Review
Oh, there we
Committee.
go.
Oh.
Sorry for the jargon.
I was having trouble there. Thank you.
Now, is it fair to assume, and actually this isn't listed on here anyways, but I think assumed because it was the school, with Tracy taking on school board, will she be the second member of the school collaboration communication committee, the joint committee?
I think that was.
Are you going to withdraw from that one? I guess that's the question. Am I?
I don't know if when the select board originally approached that, I don't know if we just assumed it would be the liaison and somebody else, or if we wanted to split that up. I just wanted to make sure I had clear guidance on that.
I don't know, and that was not part of the discussion. And it's also not listed here
Right.
separately for Dan. And when does that meet? And
Well,
how
we're looking
often?
to set up a meeting. It's
Occasionally.
kind of as needed.
I don't think it necessarily has to shift. If you like to stay plugged
It
into that, you
doesn't,
can.
it doesn't matter much to me. If you want, some ways it's easier. I don't know, Tracy and I both have busy days, so.
Yeah, you do. Let's move that with it just to keep things streamlined, and you'll stay as the other member. And we're also going to have a CIP liaison,
That we will.
and that is not on here. So, is there anybody specifically interested in being the liaison to the capital improvement? Any? Okay.
When's it going to meet?
Yet to be determined. So given the folks who are proposed to be involved right now, the two of the citizen participants are working professionals. And so I think it's fair to assume that the regular meetings would be evening meetings after hours, although I don't know that for sure, given, scheduling flexibilities. Like the town planner said, we're trying to set up a kickoff meeting for the end of this month, which will give us an opportunity to hopefully set a schedule that works for folks. So I don't think it's essential that a select board liaison participate in that kickoff meeting, but once we know what the expected schedule is, I can communicate that to the select board, and folks can, compare schedules and see who might be able to align most with the
I think that's a good
schedule.
idea.
I know she's not here, but I do think Tracy would be a great one for that.
She definitely would, but I think we need to know when the schedule is to make sure it works.
Yeah.
So we will table that particular aspect and adopt this with the exception of moving school board liaison and the second school collaboration and communication committee position to Tracy.
The legislative policy process, I've kept this in here, just still if there's anything specifically the select board wants to look at for the annual policy update. The deadline for the committees to review that is April 27th, but there's also an opportunity to submit floor proposals, which are due much later in the process. I wanted to share a link in the town administrator report to the signage request for qualifications that we have advertised. This kind of working group focused on signs has been meeting, developed this request for qualifications, as I shared with you was to be expected. The school facility manager also attended the last meeting, so I think they're interested in leveraging that procurement opportunity as well. So we have that advertised. Proposals are due at the end of this month. The sign working group will meet the first week in May to review those proposals and make a recommendation. And I hope to be able to have that recommendation before the select board at the May meeting. At that time, this being a request for qualifications, we're not authorizing the expenditure of any money at that moment, but we're accepting and identifying a partner that we'll use as our partner of record when we have sign needs. The most specific project that we have pretty well fleshed out, as I shared at my last update, is the town line signs. We have a pretty good design concept for that, and we're working through the locations and the priority locations. And so hopefully once we get this partner in place, we can identify that as the first project to start pulling a proposal together on. All of the expenditure requirements of the purchasing policy would still apply. So we know, this process would allow us to know who the company is, but any expenditure over $15,000 would still go to the select board for authorization, just like the purchasing policy says for everything else as well. As I said at the last time we discussed this, we've identified some of those rebate dollars that have come back and are unencumbered as an opportunity for funding source to fund this first phase of the project for town line signs, give the town line signs a refresh, introduce some Barrington pride, shall we say, in entering the community. So more to come on that, but expect on May 11th a proposal to award those qualifications for qualified contractor. I've also left in here the list of training opportunities, upcoming training opportunities for anybody interested. And I will point out that following COVID, NHMA started recording most of these workshops that are available for virtual participation. And that archive is available online. So if you see a training or even you see a training that isn't until later this year, but it might be something topical that you want to dig into sooner, there's probably last year's presentation available in the training archive. And you don't even have to sign up or log in to look for it. If you just send Tiffany or myself an email and say, I'm looking to watch a prior recording of this training, we can go get the link, send it to you, and you can just watch it. It's a YouTube link. It's just unlisted. So
if we sign in as a member, can we do that ourselves?
yes. Yep, you can browse the training archive. And that's all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Municipal Office Administrator Cottle.
For wet signatures tonight, we have a proclamation for the Municipal Clerks Week, which was approved on the consent agenda, a corrected timber levy and warrant, and intent to cut for map 243 lot 14. Chair Smacco, you will have in your DocuSign 2 municipal waivers that were for permits approved today. There's going to be a pile of oaths on Thursday. I think that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. All right, on to old business, the 2026 paving bid award.
I'll invite our Public Works Director to the podium or microphone. You have in your packet a recommendation from our Public Works Director, and it's also available online. And I'll let him give you a brief introduction, and then he'll be available for any questions.
Thank you for having me here. So after a quick, took a deep dive into the paving bids, and in speaking with both parties from the paving bid, I decided to go with Busby Construction, as you had seen. There seems to me that we only had 2 bidders this year, hoping to open that up again for next year, really try to draw up some more business. And speaking with Busby, it appeared that they are looking to have a better communication style and technique to really get the most bang for our buck out of pavement for this year. I was just really impressed with all the references as well. They really raved about them, so I thought it might be a good idea to try them out for this year.
Just to add a couple of things to that, the town has had a great partnership with Advanced Excavating and Paving. The town's awarded the paving contract to Advanced for 6 years, since 2020. And back in 2019, we were receiving 5 and 6 paving proposals every year when we advertise. This is the single biggest procurement that we do in a year. And at that time, when we switched to Advance, we had partnered with R&D a few years in a row. And this is the second year now we've received 2 paving proposals. And the price difference is usually big enough that it's hard to justify doing anything other than the low bid. This year, the price difference was about 3%. Not insignificant, and especially in these economic times. But in talking with the Public Works Director, I think the big thing for us is we want to make sure that these $1 million that we spend every year on paving, we're introducing the most competition to that process as possible. I would argue that this year we probably don't have the most competition that's possible because we received 2 proposals. But I think that, having an opportunity to develop and maintain partnerships with multiple paving contractors is an important way to send the message as a community that we're not just in the habit of accepting the low bid every year, accepting the same paving contractors year over year. And, in our time with Advance hasn't always been the low bidder. They've been the preferred bidder in those situations where there were lower bidders than Advanced. And all of these decisions are under a microscope from the business community to understand it takes a lot to put a bid in on a project like ours every year. And so we really want to send the message that we're open for business for all paving contractors. We want competitive bids. We want the opportunity to develop and maintain relationships with various paving contractors. And so this year seems like as good a year as any to take that opportunity, develop a new relationship with this Busby Construction, which, I give the Public Works Director a lot of credit for the research that he did, not only in meeting with folks at Advance, but also Busby, checking references and exploring what a new partnership might look like. So it's not a recommendation that the Public Works Director or myself makes lightly, but again, given the relatively small difference in price between the two, it seems like an opportunity to give further confidence in the future that Barrington's open for business for, kind of the many paving contractors that are out there.
Am I right in saying it's about $36,000 difference? Is that the...
It depends on the alternates, and I'll also point out, because you brought up the specific dollars and cents. So we advertise a scope, a paving scope that we'd like to accomplish, and we ask them to put numbers on the same paving scope because that makes the dollars and cents the same for apples and oranges comparison. We don't have enough money to fund the full scope that we advertise. The paving contractors know that. That's the, kind of, if we could get everything done we wanted to. That said, in prior years when we've been able to work through the projects efficiently and get a lot of the kind of extra scope done because, maybe this section of road required fewer tons than anticipated because of how they milled it or how the calculations they were able to apply the product efficiently. So I think the percentage difference probably is a better litmus test, but for the full scope that was advertised, it was closer to $50,000 difference between the 2 bidders, which when you're talking $1.3 million, that's about 3%.
What were the numbers between the 2? Because that's the one thing I didn't see.
Yep. So in the Public Works Director's memo, you see the advanced excavating and paving was 1.197. And the Busby excavation was 1.245.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that.
50,000.
Did you find it? We didn't find it.
No,
We
I
were
was
looking.
just,
I
I was
didn't
just
find it in
calculating
my-
3%.
Should be just before the Whitney Consulting Group in the packet if it's in the same order. Just after the appointments.
Looks like this
Spreadsheet.
memorandum at the top.
It's hard to see from here.
Here, you can pass that one down. They can share it.
I read it online.
Do you think that the fact that we have gone with Advanced for the last 6 years is driving the fact that we're not getting the volume of bids that we used to?
I will say anecdotally, in the past, we've been told if you're not going to award the low bid, we're not going to bid on your projects. In at least 1 year when we have awarded the bid to Advanced when they weren't the low bid. Beyond that, I think there's a calculus that goes into submitting bids. I think it isn't a surprise to folks in any of the last 6 years that the town's continued to award the projects to Advance because we've had a great working relationship with them. And this recommendation isn't a knock on Advance. You're always going to have challenges with any contracted partner. And that hasn't been unique to Advance, but it's more a matter of making sure that we have, that we're sending a message that we're competitive. So certainly that's not just considering other companies. That's next year taking the opportunity to be extra aggressive in proactively reaching out to contractors and saying, hey, we send out the invitation to bid to everybody, don't get me wrong, but a follow-up phone call and, hey, wondering if you wanted to meet and review the project so you can submit a bid, that kind of thing.
Imagine that culvert work getting done.
We're going a little bit slower when that project's underway.
Okay, any questions?
Have you, in your years of doing this, have you worked with Busby over and
No.
over? No. Okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit hard not to take the lowest bid. Especially after warrant articles that didn't pass.
but we put people in these leadership roles, and I think we got our best guy up there to point us in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, we were all in your interview. We know that you have a depth of knowledge here. And I can tell from what you've provided that, maybe there are some things that we're trying to improve on.
We're going to try something new this year, particularly with the SAM
I did see that.
on Stagecoach Road. If anybody's interested, they are putting on a class on Wednesday in Somersworth, and all states will be there, and they'll be going over the types of product that they use. If anybody's interested, I'll be there because I just really want to hear more about it. So that was a major move for this year, was to really try something really new there. And that was a bid alternate on that. There was only one bidder, which was all states to do that, but it's going to take some coordination between whomever is selected as a paving contractor and Allstate to have that done, because it's going to be like a two-part application.
Interesting. Do you have any knowledge on whether Allstate has worked with either Advanced or Busby?
I do not.
Okay. Let me see here. All right. Any further questions or comments from the board? I will take a motion if anyone has one.
Make a motion to accept the paving bid as presented.
So as presented being that we're going to go with Busby.
Correct.
Okay. Second? I'll second.
Koshai.
Oh, this is kind of a hard one. I'm going to say no, because it's not the lowest bid.
I'm going to say no.
Okay. Well, Samako, aye. So since we only have 4 present.
I have it.
No.
No.
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry.
So entertain a separate motion,
Yeah.
presumably to award to the low bid, see if a majority will prevail.
I'm not going to hold this up. If we're going to go with the low bidder,
I'll second that motion.
That wasn't.
That's what he
Well,
meant.
Were you making a motion?
well, Busby's the low bidder, right?
No.
Oh, Advanced.
Advanced.
So yes, going with the low.
Okay. Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call starting with Jim.
Koshai.
Aye.
Nantrick, aye?
And in the efforts of not keeping things slowing down, Samako, aye. So we'll be going with Advanced.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it was clear in the Public Works Director's recommendation, the town's had an excellent working relationship with Advanced, and both companies would more than suit the needs of Barrington. I think we need to, we as staff need to take the next year's paving advertisement on a little more proactively in following a second year of only having 2 proposals, and really get the word out that, we need to look at the lowest cost, but we need to market and bring in as many competitive proposals as we can. And that might take more work than just sending the proposal to these companies, maybe delivering copies or following up with phone calls and things like that. So, yeah, anyways, we just want to make sure we get the most competitive product.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And you haven't even had this for a whole year, so this is not a knock against your innovation. We would like to continue to hear.
No worries. I'm more than happy to work with either contractor. So.
Yeah, and this, we're to a point, 6 years in with them, they probably feel like the valued contractor that they are. And, when it goes to this bidding process, it just kind of, it keeps everybody honest. And, when you open them up, the numbers are the numbers. So, I appreciate working with them this year too.
Great. Okay. And just to be clear, although the recommendation letter addressed both, the second motion for selecting advanced, we're still going with all states for the alternate. They were the only bidder, and that was part of the recommendation. Okay. Yeah. I think that was covered in your motion. I just wanted to clarify. Great. All right. Thank you.
Okay. The 2026 revaluation.
So this is, obviously we've been talking about this for a year. Truth be told, if things were a little bit different in terms of our assessing contractor going out of business unexpectedly at the beginning of last year, we likely would have been considering looking at a adjustment of values in 2025 because our equalized ratio had fallen below 90%. That wasn't an option, so we carried that. Not unexpectedly, the equalized ratio, which again is the difference between what properties are selling at and what they're assessed at, has fallen to 78% and this is for 2025. So presumably if that trend continues, it's continuing to get lower as time goes on. That's what we've seen in the past. And so the proposal here is to have our new assessing contractor, which is Whitney Consulting Group, take on a revaluation in 2026. This would coincide with a separate assessing process, which is the assessing review year, which happens when DRA comes in. They look at all of our assessing records. They do spot checks. They look at exemption paperwork, credit paperwork, et cetera. And so typically those processes are performed in conjunction with one another. We're not always on that same cycle, but we would be this year if the select board was interested in having a revaluation done. I did include in the town administrator report a memo from our assessing contractor. Stephen Hamilton is the owner of Whitney Consulting Group. He prepared the memo. 2 things that I want to call out specifically, which I appreciated this greater level of detail than we've seen in the past. One of the more important parts of keeping values current is equity across property owning groups. So we generally have groups like single family homes and commercial and mobile homes on their own land or mobile homes on co-op land, vacant lots and waterfront properties. And so the Whitney Consulting Group memo goes into detail about the kind of impact of inequities across those different groups. But the 2 I want to call out specifically: manufactured housing with land has a ratio in 2025 of 91%. So where the average is 78%, that means that those homes are valued closer to market values than everybody else's. And as a result, as an extension of that, are possibly paying a disproportionate share of taxes because the values there haven't changed as much as the values across the board.
And can I just ask a question there? Some of that reflected on there were so few houses, so few sales.
Could be. Yes. Yep. No question. The other category that stood out to me was the vacant land. So the ratio for this category of property was 67%, where the average across all sales was 78%. This was 67%. So this is basically new developments which create new lots, and then those lots go on and sell. We obviously assign an assessed value for those vacant lots, but those lots are shown to be much more under-assessed than the average homeowner, meaning by extension that they're paying proportionately less in taxes than the average Barrington property owner. And so there's equity among, relative equity among the other groups, which is, I think is important. But those two stood out to me in terms of the need to make a correction in who is paying more or less than their share of taxes. The second thing, which I had never really thought about before, but in this memo, is the utility taxes. So utility taxes are very heavily regulated in state law, but an important basis for that is the assessed value assigned in a community, which isn't corrected for equalized ratio the same way. And so Mr. Hamilton points out that the revaluation would likely result in about $9 or $10 million of new value from the utilities, which because our equalized ratio is so low. And so as a matter of scale, we add from new construction and things like that about $20 million in value every year. And so this would be half of that just in utility value from as a result of the revaluation. So I included links in the town administrator report to the 2021 process and 2023 process, which went relatively smooth. We had a 20% adjustment in value in 2021 and a 30% adjustment in value in 2023. All things tracking similar, we could expect about a 25% adjustment in value as the sales trend continues.
Going up, yeah.
I do point out in the town administrator report that there are still 6 months of sales, which will be part of the revaluation process, which haven't happened, that aren't reflected in this data. And so the trend, the sale trend has been that homes have continued, you know, in the year, I gotta go back to the memo. But from 23 to 24, they fell about 10%, and from 24 to 25, they dropped about 9%. And so, I mean, that isn't, there doesn't seem to be an anomaly in the trend there. And so if that continued, you know, we could expect to see values change of about 25%, and more importantly, bringing equity back to some of those categories. So anyways, you have the memo, you have the sale list, and this is a really important thing, especially when folks have asked in prior value updates why we're doing this, or you know, what do you mean that, you know, values are going up 25%? This is just the raw data. These are just the homes that have sold that are referenced in this memo for our equalized values that shows the difference between the sale price and or what the sale price was for those homes. Obviously, the assessors take that, compare that to the assessed value, and that's where we get the numbers. But these are, it's not just one anomaly. Another important part of this data, these are only qualified sales. So unqualified sales, and our staff goes into all of these details. Unqualified sales are when somebody sells to a family member. Any sale with land use or current use values assigned, all of those are unqualified sales because the assessing community doesn't knows that those sale prices don't reflect the market value of those properties because of current use values. So anyways, this is the raw data that shows you know, how homes are selling. And then the last document included in the packet is the revaluation contract. I will remind you that we budgeted for a revaluation this year, so that was part of the budget process, so we have funds available to pursue that process in 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you remind me how much we budgeted for? Remember.
So the revaluation budget line, which is a separate line item, has a $75,000 budget. And we have unspent in 2025. There were certain tasks that we didn't accomplish because of our transition in assessing. So we encumbered $25,000 from 2025 for assessing purposes. 2026.
So we have 100,000.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments, questions? It's tough because nobody wants to have their properties revalued, but the longer we go,
Yeah.
I worry about what happened in Rochester where, you know, certain types of property jumped up so much. It was astonishing, but at the same time, we don't have to do this right now.
Right, because we could technically put it off. I wasn't clear. We put it off 1 year, or we can put it off 5 years from the 2023.
We could put it off a maximum of 2 years. Yep. And obviously as time goes on, those gaps have a tendency to get bigger. This is really common misconception in revaluations. Revaluation doesn't raise any more money.
Right.
Although values go up, if our rate goes up, or if our values go up 25%, if no additional spending was approved by voters in 2026, our rate would go down 25%. It's just how big the number you're dividing it by is. So another important impact of bringing our values closer to the equalized ratio is our tax rate will more accurately reflect the taxes raised in Barrington. The Fiscal Policy Institute recently put out a study that has been getting a lot of media attention, including local papers. And the local paper, unfortunately, did a terrible job at normalizing the impact of the property tax rate across communities. And the biggest missing link was the equalized ratio. So they compared, hey, a $500,000 home in this town, you pay this in taxes. A $500,000 home in this town, you pay this in taxes. But that's $500,000 assessed value. If the equalized ratio is 60% or 100%, that makes a big difference in the actual taxes that you're paying for the value of a home. And so Barrington's values being over 20% lower than the market values means that our property tax rate is 20% higher than it should be if you're comparing communities that have an equalized ratio close to 100%.
That is a very good point. I do think that that's a misconception, for some people that, we will decrease our tax rate to make sure that we're taking only the dollars that we need, but thoughts, questions, motions?
Tons of emotions. I don't know, I almost want a little bit more time because when we were talking earlier in the year about strategic and going forward about, trying not to spend more and, one of those darned if you do, darned if you don't, type of scenarios. So it's just, I don't know.
Do we have time to, when are they expecting a response, a confirmation on the contract?
Yeah, realistically, the decision should be made tonight. This is, we've been teeing this process up, certainly since the middle of last year. We always reserve the final decision for this time of year because it gives us an opportunity to look at the data in between when we start the budget process and kind of like, I would say the last moment before you can say yes or no on the revaluation. Because sometimes, if the market tanked between October and now, then we could say, hey, look, we thought this was going to be necessary. It's not necessary anymore. That didn't happen. But really, it should probably be tonight's meeting. They have a volume of work to do before September 1st to get values current. I think, if you had to delay, I think we could ask them to shorten their window. If there was a specific piece of information that somebody was looking for that we didn't have available tonight, we could delay and ask them to do it on a shorter ramp, or we could extend our deadline with Department of Revenue Administration, which would also extend our 2026 tax rate setting also.
It doesn't really matter. We're going to collect the same amount of money,
right,
regardless. I think what reevaluating does is it kind of redistributes it so that those areas that are underpaying increase their paying, and that makes it a little more even for those people who are overpaying or paying at pace. So
right.
I think we ought to go ahead and do this. Does this reset our 5-year clock?
Yes. And it would align our 5-year clock with the assessing review year because this is our assessing review year.
I mean, we probably won't go to 5 years for all the reasons we're talking about today.
Hopefully the market slows down. You know, the rate of value change that we've been experiencing in this region of the state has been pretty wild, and it hasn't let up. I mean, it's not unique to Barrington that it hasn't let up. And certainly it's a policy decision on how you keep your values current with that rate of change. You know, that's why you all get to make the decision. So yeah, that's why we're here.
I don't like the idea of it impacting our ability to shift our tax rate. And as Connor did point out, it does look like, based on the analysis that we have in front of us, that vacant land is disproportionately underpaying. And when compared with manufactured housing without land, single family homes, manufactured housing with land is disproportionately paying more. So I do agree with Dan, and I mean, it's a very good point that we're not going to collect any more dollars out of this. We're just going to shift things around and make essentially parity between the different types of property owners.
So would this have an impact on the conservation subdivisions where, you know, if they came home and do manufactured homes, and then there's the common land, is that part of this, or?
No, so I would say the impact to development in general is what the data shows right now is that when a developer comes in and creates 6 new lots and goes and sells those lots, those vacant lots are underassessed by the town's current value setting tools. It's called a use PAP report. It's what we use to assign values, and that gets updated through the revaluation process. So what the data shows right now is that we're not assessing vacant land, which is, you know, vacant lots, which are usually newly created lots, as high as they're selling. And by a factor of like, they're assessed at like 60 some odd % of their actual value. And so I don't think, from my understanding of the development world, I don't think developers are deciding how they develop land. Like, do I do a conservation subdivision, or do I try to get mobile homes in a co-op or something like that? I don't think they're making that decision based on any 1 year's difference in value of like our mobile homes on their own land are at, what was it, 87%, and our vacant land is at 67%, because they know that all it takes is 1 year to fix that. So I don't think they're making development decisions, long-term development decisions based on that data.
Okay.
But I think new development for new lots, vacant lots, is right now paying less than average in Barrington in real tax dollars.
So in my mind, I was going, do we do it this year or next year? I knew 2 years was too long. And I'm leaning towards doing it now. Yeah, the vacant land and that manufactured housing is being taxed at a higher rate. Now, I know that with only 4 sales, that may be the whole issue with that.
Could be a sampling area.
That category is a really interesting one for me, and this is why you'll remember, for those of you who were on the board back at the time, in 2021, the average value change across all properties was 20%. The average for just this category, manufactured housing with land, was over 35%.
Was the number so small then? I remember that big picture item, but I don't remember if we had so few sales.
I'd have to go back and, the sale data, I'll have to go back and check for that reevaluation, how many sales were factored into their adjustment. One of the things for revaluation that they have the ability to do, they have the ability to set a window of time longer than a year to capture an appropriate number of sales. Okay. and those trends. They qualify them, right? So if they're going to go back 2 years, they'll bring the average equalized ratio to bring those values up to be able to try to compare apples to apples. You know, this is why they get paid the big bucks to be certified assessors. But I'd have to go back and check to see how many sales there were. But in 2021, when that happened, that wasn't an unexpected outcome, because those properties at the lowest end, the most attainable properties were the properties that we were seeing the biggest difference in sales. Like in Rochester, I'm just shooting from the hip here, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think their average across town was like 100% change in value or 200% change in value. And for mobile homes, it was like 300%.
It just doesn't seem right. People are trying to live frugally.
And so the reason, just to close the loop on that, so we saw this category have a bigger shift of the tax burden in 2021, and that was what the data showed. It seems that a lot of the value that we're seeing, injected in the other housing categories right now was kind of already injected in this category of housing back then and hasn't changed, continued to change at the same rate. And so it's kind of like their value graph went like this around 2021, but then has kind of plateaued, whereas everything else has kind of been more gradual growth in value. And so we get to the point where we are now, where the average equalized value is 78%, and that category is 91%. Granted, with 4 sales, but the point about seems unfair, those living most frugally. Also, I think it bears mentioning publicly, we didn't decide, and we don't have the ability to decide that property taxes is the appropriate way to raise local funding. We have a responsibility from the state to apply those rules. And what the rules say are that you need to assign market values to properties and assess taxes based on those market values. And so the system as a whole may be broken and may be regressive and not appropriate, but we don't get to decide that system. We have to apply the system in the most fair and equitable way within the confines of how the property tax system is defined. So, thanks.
If your whole system is based on a regressive tax, it's gonna hurt.
Yep. Okay, any further comments or questions or motions or emotions?
I move we authorize reevaluation in 2026 to coincide with Barrington's 5-year assessing review as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Koshak.
Capello, aye.
Mancheck, aye.
Zamako, aye. Okay, on to new business. First item is the replacement of the totaled police cruiser.
Chief Joy up to the table. You have a copy of his memo in your town administrator report.
We didn't have these crazy drivers wrecking our cars.
How are you feeling?
0 issues.
Okay, good to hear it.
Good.
Fine afterwards. Good.
For those of you who don't know the background, since it was brought up publicly, our police chief was hit in one of our police cruisers,
No
Unit
fault
2,
of his own.
to no fault of his own, as investigated by themselves. No, I'm just
Yeah.
So you have the proposal. I can go through it all if you want me to, but it's 8:15 and you guys
Sounds
have had
reasonable.
a long night. Everything is still consistent with what I have in here. I think the only request I would make is that in the second to last paragraph, I note that I'm requesting to use $15,000 from the police equipment capital reserve. If we could change the wording to up to 15,000, I'm still looking at lines and seeing if I can not hit the CR for 15.
the proposed motion does say up to.
Okay.
For that exact reason.
But beyond that, we got hit. I need to replace it. Really, the only one available right now is available in Massachusetts, and they can get that up here hopefully this week or early next week if we can commit to it.
Okay.
We've already stripped out Unit 2. We picked that up today. We have a little bit more cleanup to do. I'll sign the title over to Primex. We'll have a check shortly after that.
And they're gonna pay for the reinstallation?
Yes, they pay for the stripping out. They pay for the reinstallation. Some of the equipment we need to add to the build, but other than that, I got the proposal today. I haven't gone through it all the way. The vast majority of our equipment is fine. Even the rear deck lights and everything worked after the collision. So we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes.
Okay. As always, I appreciate the creativity and coming up with multiple funding sources to get things done. Any further questions from the board?
I'll make it.
It just seemed low reimbursement from our insurance company.
Thank you. I agree with you.
So
This has been my gripe since day one. It's a $44,000 car, and I understand that it's old, but that cruiser would have been in our fleet for another 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, personally, if I had this insurance
Thank
policy,
you.
I'd be looking elsewhere.
I'm not crazy.
So Chief Joy and I had this conversation in my office again, because unfortunately it's not the first time that him and I have worked together through a total cruiser. So we receive the coverage that we pay for, and the coverage that we pay for through Primex as a organization the size of Barrington is we pay about $100,000 a year for property and liability insurance coverage for the entire town, which is not very much at all.
Yeah.
If we paid for full replacement, then coverage, then these circumstances would be easier, because we'd say, hey, they hit us and here's a brand new cruiser and we can move on. Every year when we pay the insurance bill would hurt a lot more. And I think in net, I think the risk pool model, it's not a surprise that only the largest communities in the state don't participate in the risk pool model, and they don't participate in a separate insurance, they're just self-insured. So I don't think the model's perfect. I think in these situations it hurts. One of the things I suggested to Chief Joy, which I would posit to the select board as well, is if this is a concern, we haven't yet not been able to make ends meet, but if it's a concern about that vulnerability that we have, we could consider establishing a capital reserve for the purposes of unanticipated replacement, and tell voters, hey, listen, we pay $100,000, we're a $10 million a year operating budget organization, many more millions than that in assets and all the rest. We only pay $100,000 a year in insurance. Let's set aside $25,000 a year and build up an account that allows us to respond, when we need to in situations like this. That need hasn't presented itself, but I don't work for Primex, but we get what we pay for.
So far, you think we're ahead in this?
I do.
You know,
don't
yes.
even.
I think you all are. I don't think the police department is.
Okay.
Make a motion to authorize
one
the
who keeps getting
replacement
crashed
of Unit 2 as presented to authorize up to $15,000 from the police equipment capital reserve to fund a portion of the replacement.
I'll second it.
Koshak.
Capello, aye.
And Trick Eye.
Samaco, aye.
And to direct the police chief to explore reinsurance so that when his yeah.
And again, and again.
All right, the Economic Development Initiative website information discussion.
Bring our town planner back up to the table, and I'll toot his horn as he approaches. He has an energy unlike Barrington has seen maybe ever, but certainly in a long time, relative to our role in economic development, which is very exciting.
Your graphics are just great, Ernie.
So this is, and don't forget to unmute your microphone and maybe just twist it towards you so it picks you up good. But this is a discussion about how we take some of the economic development work that Ernie is working on and present it to the community, specifically because it's different than what we've seen before. And I referenced in the town administrator report, the website link policy, that's kind of hyper-focused on only those business partners that we actually do business with. But it's broad enough that I think we're okay, but wanted to get the select board's input before we kind of diverge too far from what that policy says specifically. And if we seem like we're going too far away, we could certainly update the policy to reflect our current operations. But I'll let Ernie give you a quick overview of what he has in mind in the slide deck you have in your packet.
Right. Well, if you had a chance to look at your the slides, when I came to Barrington, I mean, there was a lot of energy around the town center. There still is obviously a lot of energy around the town center. And you have those two landmark businesses right there. And as you drive, down 125 coming towards Town Hall, you pass this huge building on the right-hand side as you're coming this way called TurboCam. I mean, it's such a juxtaposition. I mean, it's really kind of a nice intersection of, as I said here, opportunity and heritage. So I wanted to try to bring all of that together into more of a concentrated focus on economic development. You have a lot of this information that's on the website already, because the town is transparent as all get out, which is great. But what I was trying to do is kind of focus it a little bit, so that you could have a chance maybe to focus on some of these businesses that you have, large and small. So if you look at, for instance, this page here with the 4 text boxes on it, it just sort of gives some highlights. It goes down and talks about global manufacturing hub. And incidentally, I did have Michael Nerona took a look at this and did say, everything is very accurate with regard to TurboCam and everything. And he actually liked it. And the only question came in was the very last slide when it had to look at cluster businesses around TurboCam itself. That's something that's way beyond any of this at this point. I was just kind of, projecting what I was thinking in that. So don't even pay attention to that slide for right now. But really, just highlighting businesses, maybe doing some focus interviews with people, so that people understand what we actually have here in town. So if you take a look at that, there's one piece that focuses on the town center itself, and then there's another page that actually makes links to some of our regional partners, chambers of commerce in the area, including obviously the Greater Barrington Chamber of Commerce, but there's Rochester, Dover, Somersworth. Then you've got the state programs, economic development programs that could be linked to. So it becomes an informational site that not only brings attention to some of the economic development programs the state has, but it also tells you more about Barrington and why it's a great place to be. Companies look at good places for their, you got a great educational attainment level here in town. Companies look for that so that they can employ people that have the skills that they need. And then you have the small businesses that support everything that's going on in town. And I'd love to be able to focus on not only the larger businesses, but some of the smaller businesses. I may be developing a quarterly or program where you choose 1 or 2 businesses to do an interview with. And Connor and I even discussed shortly or briefly having some kind of a televised sort of an interview or something that you would have on YouTube channel that people could click and take a look at and learn more about whatever business was being highlighted. So anyway, I think the whole thing with this is, as Connor said, we didn't want to get too far ahead of things until you had a chance to look at it and see if it's something you like. If you had questions or comments, you can bring them up tonight, send them to me, whatever. But we want to develop a policy that kind of fits with the town. And I don't really know how that is. I've done this in other towns before. It's harder, obviously, when you get into larger towns because there are a lot more businesses. But you're at a great size to be able to do this with and to promote the highlights of the town of Barrington. So anyway, that's my spiel.
Jim.
I love it. Since I've been doing this since 2019, and I was always a fan of trying to drive more attention to commercial businesses, especially ones that don't use our system for the most part. And TurboCam has been a great contributor to the town of Barrington, and I love the idea.
I think you did a fabulous job with this. It reminds me a little bit of what UNH and the Economic Trails, when they did the survey, they came up with, I thought the data around visitors to Barrington was really interesting, that visitors came for the unique things in Barrington. So of course they're not coming for the TurboCam as a visitor, but the unique things. So putting it as legacy and economic, I think is a really good thing. And also as part of that survey, those same people said they came here because of the uniqueness of the business. They wouldn't come for a big box store or a chain.
Yeah. I I think that this is fantastic. I think the presentation is very well thought out. My only comment would be to just make sure that this, that the way that we proceed with it and the approach makes it sort of encompass all the businesses Barrington has to offer, just making sure that it's equitable.
And the time constraint will be the big one there. And Ernie and I have talked about, we'd like to be able to highlight any and all the businesses we have. We can't do them all at once, kind of have to start somewhere. I think the way Ernie has wrapped his head around Barrington, and even just the short time that he's been here, is really impressive. And, the subheading here is the perfect intersection of opportunity and heritage. And then it's the third page. And it talks about from 19th century country store to 21st century aerospace components, Barrington blends historic charm with advanced manufacturing, welcoming both legacy family enterprises and high-tech innovators. Like, what a sales pitch. But it's more than just a sales pitch. That is what Barrington is. Yep. I mean, that's how I couldn't describe, from a business opportunity standpoint, I couldn't describe Barrington any better. And so trying to get on the ends of that spectrum and then fill in the middle as time allows, I think is helpful. But I'm glad to have support, and certainly as we continue in this endeavor, we'll have continuing check-ins with the select board. And if anybody has concerns, or if concerns get brought up to board members about the website link policy, or kind of like our real or perceived partnerships with any of these businesses, other than the fact that they pay taxes in town and receive services in town, we can look at how we want to address that. But I would recommend that until it's a problem, we just do the good work and then address it when we need to.
Yeah, because I didn't think the policy really talked about local businesses. So,
and that's what I mean. I think the policy is moot to it, but I think it's mute to it. But I think like I said, I think this opportunity is helpful, so that if somebody does raise a concern, us as staff can say, hey, listen, the select board's supportive of this approach, but if we need to put some guardrails up, we can take that to the select board and talk about it. And that isn't the first time that the select board hears about anything. So,
just as a suggestion, if you're looking at sort of real grassroots businesses in town, the craft fair that happens in November might be a nice thing to highlight. I know they're probably not all from Barrington, but you got like teenage kids selling their wares and households, and it could be a fun human interest story about that really local type of business.
Yeah, because I think, the way I look at it is that it all ties together. I mean, with the recreation program you have here, I mean, it's just everything about Barrington is good, I think. I mean, just looking at it from, the outside, more outside, I think probably than most people here at the table are. But I just, I'm very impressed with it, and I would love to be able to share that with the world.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah. You are you have brought so much knowledge and information and outside the box thinking, having worked with you probably more than most of the board through the land use board, you've just been great. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
I could see the passion when you came to present. That was awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ernie.
All right.
Thank you.
Proposed agenda change. I would like to bump item C to item D and insert the grant proposal as item C, since we have someone here in person for the grant proposal, but we don't have someone, I believe,
Correct.
here for the radon. So,
Sure, just an adjustment.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're gonna take you next, because you've been patiently waiting on the grant proposal.
He's having fun. Yeah.
I'm here all night, folks.
Love of the game. So this was an agenda addition, and because I don't think he'll do it adequately, I will toot his horn and say that our public works director did not skip a beat when town meeting said, hey, listen, that single biggest warrant article other than the budget, we can't approve this time around. And came into the process, and he's got an equipment replacement schedule that he's committed to and he wants to work on, and now he's got a $300,000 deficit in his first 6 months of working here. And he, like I said, he did not skip a beat. He immediately went leverage the resources that he has and the contacts that he has in grant programs and stuff he was exposed to when he was in the city of Dover, and submitted our loader, which was next up for review for a grant proposal, and got back to a proposal for 25% funding. I'll let Mike explain the specific details, but what we're looking for from the select board tonight is a authorization to move forward with this grant, with one caveat that we'll continue to explore, but before the deadline, to make sure that there isn't a sweeter deal available, but to give us the opportunity to move forward. So do you want to hit the high points, Mike?
All right, I'm going to touch upon what Connor alluded to just briefly. So the New Hampshire Clean Diesel Grant is there to replace aging fleets, off-road equipment with newer equipment. I was hoping for a 40% match from the state. Unfortunately, they could only do 25%. The 40% is more or less reserved for a battery-powered loader, an electric loader. I did explore those. They don't really make one in the size that would fit Barrington. Talked to a ton of other municipalities that have them. They absolutely love it. It's just a little bit too small, and I was afraid we weren't really going to get the bang for the buck. So put out some bid proposal for a new loader, took the lowest bidder there, since I think it would apply best to the grant, applied for the grant came back, they give us 25%. Connor alluded to the other funding sources, which is the Granite State Clean Fleets. They do allow a lot more in that, 40% or even higher. That is really reserved for on-road vehicles. I could maybe get it to go, but it's a bit of a, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle with this. I did reach out to the state asking on both of those if a decision wasn't necessarily made tonight. If I reapplied, they would just have to re-accept it. I'd have to be reviewed again. But the other grant would be just a lot more difficult to kind of go after. The reason why this is very short is it closes on the 20th and then it resets. They announce at the end of the month if they're going to extend it and if they have the funds available. So that's kind of the whole other portion of this, is that they may not open up the clean diesel grant again because they may have run out of funds.
So can we apply to both, or do we have to withdraw and then apply?
We would have to withdraw and then apply.
And there's a chance that we might not get accepted at all.
Yes.
And just the one grant term, the most important grant term is because they're trying to get these older diesel engines that produce more emissions out of circulation, we're required to destroy the engine in the loader that we're replacing. And so that greatly reduces the value of this used piece of equipment. For that reason, Mike got values for the loader that we'll be replacing in the neighborhood of like $15,000. So when you compare the $15,000 we'd get, at auction or for a trade-in with the $50,000 for the grant, it's worth it for us to drill a hole through the engine. But that's the whole premise of this program, is we're just taking them out of circulation completely.
Yeah. And it is,
We're in need of a loader for sure.
yeah, and it is more
Next
money.
up on the replacement schedule.
Yeah.
It is more money than we would have without the grant, even if we were able to sell the one that we have. So
I was really hoping to kind of eliminate two pieces of equipment with one. The Challenger mower, roadside mower we have, is aging out. So it was a bit of a struggle to decide, do we need a loader? Do we need a new Challenger tractor? I decided to go with the loader because we may have an opportunity in the future to purchase a attachment for that, which can do roadside mowing.
okay.
So I was kind of trying to think a little bit ahead into the future. And I tried to get it rolled into this grant. They shot me down. So
In-kind replacement.
tried to sneak it in there and they caught me.
Okay. Any further questions?
My heart breaks that we have to do this to a piece of equipment. But part of me is curious to see, Because I mean, how difficult do you think it would be to get a plate for the loader and we're driving that down the road, right? Technically it'd be on road, right?
I had asked that question, especially the roadside mower. It's a roadside mower for a
Right.
reason. It's on the road. We're not mowing anything off the road because it's staying on the road while we do it. They didn't bite. They're smarter than that. I'm sure they've heard every bit.
I asked the question.
I tried. I tried to haggle with them this afternoon and get a little bit more out of them, but they really weren't wavering. The other grant is really to replace school buses, like six-wheel dump trucks, even just like diesel pickups. You'd have a high replacement value for that. So.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Any motions?
However,
Okay, great.
I recommend, or I move that we accept this grant. I guess that's what I.
The terms of the Clean Diesel Grant Program.
Right, yeah, thank you.
I'll second. All in favor?
O'Shea.
Capello, aye.
Answer aye.
Tamako, aye.
Do we need a separate thing to authorize removing money from the capital reserve?
Very savvy question. We'll wait to do that. We have to have a public hearing, RSA 3195B, to accept the unanticipated revenue. We'll do the funding at that point.
Okay.
Really, the thing is now we needed Mike to have authorization to say yes to the grant program and keep the process moving. So probably in May, we'll have that request and move forward. So we can do that then.
Great. Well, thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, on to what is now item D, the radon and well water proposal.
So Farida Shagazi, a resident of the town of Barrington, not related to this proposal, but also a member of the advisory budget committee, submitted this proposal a couple months ago. I thought she was going to be here tonight. She sent me an email this afternoon saying that she couldn't make it. This proposal, if I was going to give a quick summary, basically asks the select board to consider an exploratory phase of radon in well water in Barrington as an initial step to evaluate potential municipal water throughout Barrington. And so anyways, the proposals linked to the town administrator report. You all have copies of that. I used the opportunity to explore kind of what data already exists and what opportunities exist. And the Department of Health and Human Services, has a radon program. They have an entire radon program in New Hampshire. They look at radon in the air, they look at radon in the water, and they do data collection and analysis. And they make data available also specific to communities. So we already know from the New Hampshire Radon Program data portal for radon in well water, which includes data collection from 2006 to 2022, that shows that the percent of wells in Barrington that exceed the 2,000 picocuries, thank you, per liter. Did you look that up or you just know that?
I just know that.
You're amazing. Radon in water is 82.8%. So, more than 80% of wells in Barrington exceed the recommended, exceeding the guidance for radon in water. And the confidence of their testing is 95%. So I included links to that data portal and a story map that that helps digest some of that data. So to the point of funding our own analysis, I think the data shows that there is overwhelmingly radon above guideline radon levels in Barrington well water. And so obviously the next logical question is Barrington going to do anything about that, like pursue possible, municipal water supply? But I also wanted to point out in terms of testing programs, and this is radon in air, which I'll point out that radon in water is only a problem because it comes in the air. You don't drink the radon in water and then it affects your lungs like you breathing the radon. But the radon in water is agitated, through your diffusers on your faucets and everything like that. And then the radon is released into your house and then that, becomes a problem. That's my understanding with a couple weeks of research
science.
in radon. Yeah, yeah. We probably have a better subject matter expert here.
How's he doing?
He's given me a nod. So anyways, there are a couple of testing opportunities that residents in Barrington have. The first, which is really exciting, this just started last year. And honestly, before researching this project, I was not aware of this, but our own Barrington Library participates in the state radon program as of last year. And they have a digital radon meter that you can check out for 14 days. And you can do small samples, you can do long-term samples, you can do multiple samples around your house. And that's a really great way. Now that data goes back into the state database so that they can, have more data. Again, this is radon in air. But then also the New Hampshire Radon Program has a free test kit program where every home, while supplies last, is eligible for a radon test kit every 2 years. And if your radon levels are above, your air levels are above the 4 picocuries per liter, you're eligible for a confirmation test kit to test twice and confirm, that's probably best practices or whatever. So individual residents have the opportunity to do testing in air where it really matters right now to understand their own needs and the potential for remediation. I included a link to the radon gas in air and water DHHS information sheet. There's also a printed copy in the packets. Which is really helpful. It talks about some of the data, it talks about the specific and the options. So again, the proposal was specifically for testing. I guess the select board could consider if they feel that additional testing is necessary to understand if a problem exists. And then if, depending on that decision, if the select board is interested in pursuing any further conversation about a town-wide approach to solving that problem.
Okay. Thank you. I did want to share, since Tracy's not here to share for herself, she did obtain one of the free test kits and tested just above 4 picocuries per liter, which made her eligible for the confirmation test kit, which costs $600. And it's an air and water sampling test kit, only to find out everything is fine. And she wanted me to share that she was concerned that, a program like that, if we got involved with it and we're recommending that people do that, it's going to cause this alarm, and not everybody has $600 to get the second test kit. So she did want me to share that. I think that there's a lot of information and data collection out there already, and I don't know that we have the budget right now to be considering new products or new projects, but I'm happy to discuss. Dana.
One of the concepts in medical screening is it likely to be a problem? But more importantly, if you detect this, what do you do about it? And I don't think we as a town are ready to do that in the foreseeable future. So I kind of agree with you that maybe we don't need to push this test. Incidentally, our radon in our air in our house is well below the numbers. So having just tested it last.
Joyce.
I think it's a good public health service announcement. I am not ready to link it to municipal water supply, but I would think it's a good thing to alert our residents that this is an issue and they can use the library and get a free test kit, knowing that follow-up test kits, I guess, are expensive. So I would be in favor of doing something like that.
Sharing the information. Did you have a comment?
I think a lot of, I know there was a period when the homes were really flying out, people weren't getting home inspections, but a lot of the homes have been inspected, and if they are, they're tested for radon then and there as part of the inspection. They get the radon pump or what have you, and.
But that would be a home inspection if houses are being sold, right?
Right, and there was a lot, right, and then a lot of new homes going in, right, get a test of water, make sure it's good, have your stuff there, so. I think there is probably a market for some few or, quite a bit, or could be, but I would, put the responsibility, liability, but educate them on our findings.
Because I think there's a lot of homes, that haven't been tested, including my own.
Yeah,
I think we tested once about 3 decades ago.
Well, so when I bought my house in 2021 with the VA mortgage, I was required to get my water tested, and I think FHA mortgages also require a water test. So there are some, but yes, I mean, sharing information, in a non-alarmist way, putting the information out there, I think is great. I think we can probably disseminate this information. I just don't think that we're in a position at this point. And it sounds like I'm not the only one to think that anything more than just making sure that the town is aware of that there are concerns and that there are resources available is all that we can really do at this point.
It's a great path forward. Thank
Yeah,
you.
if you have granite, you have radon.
Right.
Well, this is the granite state, so should we change that?
Exactly.
Petition to change it to the
Precisely.
radon state?
That's a great slogan.
Okay, moving into report outs, I just want to remind you that this is not just board reports, but if you have questions, comments, or concerns generally, this is an excellent opportunity as select board members to share those. We'll start with Jim.
Things are shaking up well at the rec. They are all moved in. They've even run a couple of programs through there, like yoga, which is exciting to see. And the fishing derby is May 9th at the Christmas Stove.
So I didn't attend planning board last week, but I think it was primarily about some of the class 6 and private road applications. And I wasn't able to attend, but I will next week, the New Hampshire Municipal Association on proposals around the financing issue. So questions and concerns. So I had a comment from a resident who felt that when the town makes bids, we put out the amount of money we're looking for, which I haven't seen that in any bid. But then in our bid going out for signage, we did say what our budget was. So maybe you could just talk about that a little bit.
Interesting. So a competitive, a couple things, interesting information. So from a big picture, government procurement is important to be competitive and equal opportunity. So those are some of the tenets of government procurement. And our purchasing policy is written in support of that. So with a request for bid or request for proposals, that process is focused very heavily on the cost or the value of whatever good or service that we're looking for. And so those are all always sealed bids and they're opened publicly all at the same time. Everybody has the information. We're not like opening a bid and then that information could get out and things like that. So relative to that process, the whatever we're looking to do, generally we have a budget for that, right? Like we know how much money we can spend, and it's not uncommon that we advertise and realize that we haven't budgeted enough money for that, or similar to paving, we were talking about, we don't have $1.3 million to spend on paving, but we advertise that scope and we communicate to folks that, hey, listen, we have a budget to spend, it depends on voter decisions and things like that, but this is the type of work we'd like to get done, put a price on this. So I'm not familiar of a request for bid or request for proposal where we've specifically said, this is the number we're looking for, like give us this number, because that isn't how the process should work. I guess, like I said, we talk publicly about what we have budgets available for things. And sometimes in request for bid or request for proposal, we'll have bid alternates where we'll ask for, value engineering options in a good or service. Now, request for qualification process is notably different because that process doesn't rely exclusively on cost. We're evaluating, what we're telling companies is that we're evaluating their qualifications to do this job, not their ability to be the cheapest, their ability to be the best. And so, sometimes we're required to do a request for qualification process, like some of the state bridge projects have required a request for qualifications process for engineering, as an example. So the signage request for qualifications says to the business community, hey, we're trying to get a qualified, the most qualified, the best partner for signage in Barrington. Now, we do ask for illustrative cost examples in that request for qualifications. We say, hey, look, these are the types of services. If you bill by the hour, what are your hourly rates? Or this is a specific example. Can you assign a price to this so we have an idea of how you bid these projects? But separately, in the background of the request for qualifications, we indicated that the select board has identified possible funding for these projects. And the reason something like that's important in an advertisement like that is because, unfortunately, it happens very frequently in government work that people have all these grand ideas and they advertise all these grand ideas, but they have no plan to actually do them. So these companies put a lot of time and effort responding to a procurement activity. They get selected even as the partner. And then it's like, okay, well, yeah, we want to do all this, but we'll just have to wait for the money, or we'll have to have a plan for the money. So I think in a situation like the signage request for qualifications, I think it was really important that we identify that funding is available for an initial project at a minimum. You know, we'll have ongoing signage needs well into the future, but funding is available for an initial project so that they know that there's an opportunity to actually come in, get this scope, or, you know, get this award as a partner and actually have some work to do. So I don't think that's necessarily a situation where we're telling them that, like, hey, you know, come tell us how to spend this money. It's more communicating an incentive that we actually have a plan in place, because all too often people spend time and money on procurement and don't. Does that address the concerns maybe the resident has? Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up.
Great, thank you.
ABC met and presented the two, for the four people, was kind of their sort or direction. School board was discussing their budget, and then I missed last Tuesday's meeting, but see about next Tuesday's meeting, who Tracy can see what they're doing about it.
Okay.
We're meeting a week from Wednesday for the transfer station meetings.
Okay.
Whatever that acronym is that we.
TRSCRC?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one that I'm part of. And then
Okay, thank you. There was no formal ZBA meeting this month, but we did do a site walk on Holiday Lakeshore Drive last Wednesday in preparation for a continued hearing, which will be heard on Wednesday, regarding a variance on setbacks on a quarter-acre lot with a granite shelf at the back of it. So, all right, at this time, I'm going to open our second round of public comment. You are limited to 3 minutes, and it's not a question and answer session. It's just a chance for anybody online or in the room to share any comments or concerns. You can also submit things to ask at barrington.nh.gov. At this time, we're going to open public comment. Use the raise hand feature or come to the lectern if you're in the room. Not seeing any, I will close public comment, and then I move we enter non-public for the purposes of personnel. I have a second. Do I have a second on that?
Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Scotia.
Capiello, aye.
and Shrek.
All right, Smock, aye, so we're going to enter non-public.
Great. I will do.
And we're
Okay, we're back.
Okay, and at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Sakoshai.
BLOI.
Handshake, no?
Mako, aye, we win.